if you don't identify with the intellect and you don't identify with the body, what do you identify with?
You should try it. See, if you do not identify with the intellect, if you do not identify with the body, what do you identify with? The moment you identify with something, whatever that something is, the nature of the mind is, it'll work around that, always. See, for example, nationality. In India, we have a better experience of this, everybody has, but there are many people here who moved from some other country to United States now. In India, what was India was split into three different countries at one time. So suddenly you fall on this side of the border, you become one kind of identity, that side of the border, you become another kind of identity. The moment you identify that I'm Indian, just a piece of cloth flies, flutters in the air, tears will come, a flag. People are willing to live for it, die for it. But if you are on the other side of the thing, if this flutters, you hate it.
Right.
So I'm saying the identity, the nature of identity is such, whatever you get identified, the mind will instantly wrap itself around that, because that is an instrument of self-preservation. If you identify with the body, immediately it's working around this to preserve this. If you identify with a larger idea, it will wrap itself around that. It's so wrapped around that, you're willing to shed the body for the nation.
So are you saying identify with nothing?
How can you identify with nothing? If your identity is taken off, if you consciously shed your identity, if you sit here like this, if you keep your hands here, it just stays here. Just like that your mind will become. If you want, you can use it, otherwise you can just keep it.
Just like that?
Just like that. It is rolling the way it's rolling simply because you're identified with things that you're not.
So, I certainly believe you that all these
You should
things
not,
that
being a scientist, you should not believe
well,
me.
no,
I
no,
don't believe anything.
no, this is something that I find very easy it's very compatible with my views as a scientist, to think that the things that we identify ourselves with are fairly arbitrary, like our body or our conscious stream of thought or, our knowledge or something like that.
Family, nation,
Yeah,
this, that,
those
ideologies,
those
everything.
are very yeah, and so I'm very comfortable with the idea that we have, for convenience, for survival, as you said, we construct a model of the world.
Yeah.
In which there are certain objects and they have certain properties, and we're one of the objects, and we have boundaries and properties, but that's just made up. That's just a model that we made up. It's only an approximation. It's useful for certain purposes, but it's not really the nature of reality. It's something that we've imposed on reality for our own understanding. That I'm very comfortable with, that notion. What is hard for me is to know how to put that into practice in a useful way. Because the thing that I know how to do, of course, is to manipulate that model and work with that model, and I mean that's the thing I've done all my life. And so even though I recognize it's only a model, it has limitations, I don't know what else to do.
It's not that you have to do something different with what you're doing around you, but something different with yourself. You don't have to change what you're doing outside. But the reason why I'm talking to you today is, if somebody is competent enough to do things which could make life better, which could create fantastic things in the world, such a mind, such a human being should not suffer the limitations of identity.
I love that idea. I wish I knew how to do it.
I can do it for you. I can put you through a simple process with which you can do. The basic process that we teach people is just this: if you sit here, in your experience, this is not hallucinating, in your experience, your body is here, your mind is somewhere here, what is you is elsewhere. Do not give it any other name, what is you. But distinctly, your experience of who you are is little away from you, your body and your mind, or your intellect at least. Once there's a little distance between your intellect and your body from who you are, these are the only two sources through which human beings normally acquire any kind of unpleasantness or suffering. We can make your body suffer by poking it, or we can make your mind suffer. This doesn't need poking, most people are in self-help.
You're poking me right now.
These are the only two sources of suffering. Once there's a little distance or space, this is the end of suffering. Only when the fear of suffering is entirely removed from you, only when the possibility of suffering taken away from you, you will walk full stride. Otherwise, every human being is only half a step, because always the question is, what will happen to me?